exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number one contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
In terms of purpose, for me, the real truth is our purpose is to fully accept, fully trust, and fully love ourselves. Because when we do that, it is then that we can really show up for the world in our true light, with all of our strengths, with all of the essence that we were born to be. You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 662. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here for this Coming Home to Yourself series that I'm doing as my 50th birthday approaches. These are 10 episodes, life lessons, wisdom that I'm bringing you that I've learned over the last almost 50 years, and truly the things that I have learned, the biggest things that I have learned since I started my personal development journey, and really in earnest started that around 2006. Thank you also for the feedback. I've been absolutely loving the handful of you that have DM'd me on Instagram. I appreciate you so much. And also one of you left me a YouTube comment, and I haven't received a YouTube comment that wasn't spam. And I can't tell you how long. And before you go over to YouTube and say, like, I didn't know you made videos over there. I don't. I haven't in a long time, but the podcast is available over there just on audio. And so that's where someone left it. So I just appreciate it so very much. And I wanted to let you know that I do have some openings right now and into the spring for private coaching. If you want some extra support, some one-on-one support, head on over to AndreaOwen.com/coaching. There you will find the description, the info page for my Daring Way program that I take people through privately. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, in the last FAQ, there is a link that goes to what I call open sessions. That's where you bring your primary focus and you can apply. We can get on the phone together, see if it's a good fit, and go from there. Also, hi, I'm doing a book giveaway with this episode, and all 10 of them, I've already given away 4 free signed personalized books and mailed them off. So all you have to do is go to my Instagram, Hey Andrea Owen, and look for the Wednesday post that is about this episode. I will tell you how to enter. You do have to comment in order to enter to win. I pick a random winner the following Monday, and I'll DM you. We'll figure it out. And then you get to pick. Do you want 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life? Do you want How to Stop Feeling Like Shit? Or do you want Make Some Noise? And I will personalize it and sign it. I'll even sign it to somebody else, and you can give it away as a gift and just be a hero. How about that? So I'm Hey Andrea Owen over on Instagram. And as a reminder, all of these episodes, all of these 10 life lesson Coming Home to Yourself series episodes have accompanying worksheets. That's always a mouthful for me to say. Accompanying worksheets. And this one is no exception. So if you go over to AndreaOwen.com/662, or just check out the show notes, there is a link to click where you can download these worksheets, and it's reflections, questions for you to specifically look at this topic in your life, how it applies to your life, and integrate some of the work, because that's really my hope for you is when you're ready. Sometimes you might just want to be gathering information, but when you're ready to actually do the work, I want to be able to support you in that in any way that I can. So the worksheets are free, and they are over in the show notes or AndreaOwen.com/662. All right, let's get into it, shall we? This one is about life purpose, and I could not do these 10 life lessons without talking about life purpose. Not necessarily because I think that life purpose is a topic that needs to get talked about more in this in this industry, but because it is a topic that I get asked about a lot. Anytime that a woman in the community comes to me and asks me about it, or even comes to coaching with that question, really what is at the root of it is that we all want to know that our lives matter. Because when we feel like our lives matter, we feel like we matter. And I also just think that's a part of a human experience. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just what makes us human. Like, we want to know that our lives have meaning. And we have kind of lumped that into quote unquote life purpose, to very important words that we've made them very, very important. And so you may have heard me talk about life purpose. I know I have written about it in at least one of my books, and I've probably even done a mini-sode on it. I'm positive I have. Yes. And I've even blogged about this many, many years ago. So this is not a new topic to me in terms of doing what I do in personal growth and women's empowerment. And at 50, almost 50, I've come to realize that our real purpose isn't about what we do. It really is about who we become. And so, ta-da, that's why it's one of these 10 topics. In my opinion, our life purpose is about coming home to ourselves. And that's what I mean when I say it's about who we become. And I also want to pause before I go any further and acknowledge you, because anyone who listens to this show, whether you are new to the show, whether you've been with me for years, whether you are listening to this in the future because you lost track of episodes and are catching up, you're a seeker. You're a seeker, and you were probably born this way, whether you have felt this way from the beginning of your life as a child or later in life. Maybe there was a huge transition that happened and you found personal growth. That's what I mean when I say seeker, is someone who's looking for evolution, looking for their own evolution, wanting to become a better person. And you find yourself kind of like reaching out into the distance, metaphorically maybe, but we want this thing. We're looking for it. And many times we spend our lives searching for it in our career. We think that if we can find a job and a career that fulfills that, then that'll be it. We look for it in our relationships. I think sometimes we look for it in our parenting. We sometimes look for it in our achievements. For me, I started to realize that that wasn't it. I had two big moments when I started doing this work, when I literally am in a career that focuses on people's transformation, people's evolution, and my own as well. And realizing that it's not the career. This career, it's still a job. It's still a job. And it's both things. Like it on one hand, yes, it comes with all of the regular job things and, the things that we don't necessarily like all of the time. And at the same time, yes, it's very fulfilling. I am incredibly grateful for that. I know that I'm lucky in that regard and that not everyone has that. People spend a lot of time looking for a career that is at least somewhat fulfilling to them. And I'm lucky enough to have that. So both things are true, paradoxically, but both things are true. And at the same time, I am not placing this as a career as my life purpose. So that's one time I had that realization. And then another one when my children were still fairly young, and I realized that being a mother, like I thought before I had kids, because I've always known I wanted to be a mother. And when it happened, I really thought, okay, this is going to be like my life purpose. When I had them and they were still pretty little, and I realized, oh, this isn't it. I had to really come to terms with that, because I had some guilt in that feeling, because I thought that it meant something about the way I feel about my children, and it doesn't. It just means that I know that being their mother, the role of being their mother, isn't my absolute soul life purpose. I also, now that I'm telling you all this, I also feel like, in terms of chasing something external and realizing that the real work was internal. I realized this after my first marriage ended, and then I immediately got into a terrible relationship after that my quest for chasing something external to fulfill me, then it was men and relationships, was unfulfilling. And this was going to be a round and around and around in circles lifetime job that I was doing, and that the real work for me was internal. So that began sort of the tap on the shoulder for me from my intuition saying, hey, this isn't it. The work is inside of you. The holiest of work that you're going to do throughout your whole life is inside of you. And in a future one of these 10 episodes, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And it'll dovetail off of this one nicely, but more on that later. So I want to sort of point out and paint a little more of the picture around the search for purpose, because I really want to hammer it home how much space this might be taking up in your mind, because in a sense, we have been sold a lie that our purpose is something external, that it is a career, a partnership, a relationship, a goal to check off. That's not true. What I have come to find is that's not true. And our culture conditions us to believe that we need to earn things like worthiness, that we need to earn things like love and belonging. Like if we are good enough, if we are something enough, then we will find it. And Lord knows I ran around in circles doing that for years and years and years. And that leads to endless seeking, whether it's approval seeking from others or people pleasing or achievements, validation, and it never fills the void. And we, again, running around in circles. One of the reasons that I called this whole series Coming Home to Yourself is that in terms of purpose, for me, the real truth is our purpose is to fully accept, fully trust, and fully love ourselves. Because when we do that, it is then that we can really serve the world. And I'm using air quotes when I say serve. Show up for the world, I think is what I'm trying to say, in our true light, with all of our strengths, with all of the essence that we were born to be. As I am saying this out loud, there's a part of me that is like, girl, this is the most esoteric shit has ever come out of your mouth on the podcast. It might be. Maybe this is what's happening to me. I don't know. But it really comes down to being, being a human being, and that shift that we encounter from being someone who is a seeker and not seeing what is truly in front of us and what the real answer is, because it's inside of us. That shift from there over to just being. And this is something that previously I was not ready to do. In my 30s and even way into my 40s, I was not ready to see that. I wanted to keep running in circles and looking for my purpose and still trying to find things external to me. And then I kind of came to a place where I'm like, okay, I get it. It's not external, it's internal. But being in sort of I talk about the point of no return, where you see something in front of you or about something in front of you. In this case, it's okay. The answers are inside of me. They're not external. And not being able to go backwards though, and go back to a place where you're running in circles and feeling like the answers are outside of you. I stayed in that place for a long time, that kind of limbo space. And I do finally feel like I've come over to the other side where I completely have integrated the knowledge of radical acceptance and being able to completely shine my light. And more on this later on the podcast too, because it's been a metamorphosis over the last 2 years, y'all. It's been quite a metamorphosis since I left my marriage in January of 2023. Okay, quick ad break. When we come back, I'm going to talk more about what it means to create a life purpose that is coming home to yourself. Be right back. I want to take a minute to talk about something I've struggled with, my relationship with food and my body. In my 20s, I battled an eating disorder for years, and finding the right treatment was frustrating. One of the biggest barriers was that insurance wouldn't cover it just because I was still having my period. I had to navigate so much of it on my own, and I don't want that for anyone else. Eating disorders are so common, yet we don't talk about them enough. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Equip, a virtual evidence-based eating disorder treatment program that helps you recover at home. No putting your life on hold, whether it's work, family, or the things that bring you joy. Equip gives you a full care team, a therapist, dietitian, medical provider, and even a mentor who's been through recovery. They treat people of all ages, all types of eating disorders, and best of all, is covered by insurance and has no wait list. If you or someone you love is struggling, don't wait. You deserve help. Get a free consultation with Equip today because healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. Visit equip.health/noise to learn more about Equip's virtual accessible eating disorder treatment. That's equip.health/noise. Let's talk about perimenopause and menopause. If you've been feeling like your body's betraying you, you're not alone and you don't have to suffer through it. That's where MIDI Health comes in. MIDI connects you with expert clinicians who actually understand women's midlife health. There's no guesswork, no dismissing your symptoms, just real science-backed solutions to help you feel like yourself again. They treat things like hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness and libido changes, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, and more. Booking a virtual visit is fast and easy. There are no membership fees, no hidden costs, just specialized care covered by major insurance providers. And if you're out of network or uninsured, there are affordable cash options too. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Okay, coming home to yourself. Having that be your life purpose, your compass, your North Star. This also looks like self-reclamation, because typically we don't get to this place when we're a young one. We usually spend many, many years, decades for lots of us self-abandoning, which see lesson 1, a few podcast episodes again, self-abandonment versus self-trust. Coming home to yourself looks like being in self-abandonment and then headed towards self-reclamation. It is reclaiming yourself. It is choosing yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. I had a client the other day who said, I need to start betting on myself. I love that she said that because I love that term. In fact, it's one of the chapters in my book that's coming out this coming December. And it's that self-abandonment over to self-reclamation. And it's not a perfect line, and we'll bounce back and forth a little bit. But my hope is that you can start choosing yourself, start that self-reclamation, and it picks up speed and momentum. It is the moment you realize, I don't need love from others to feel whole. I am love. This is not to say that you don't continue to try to be in relationships, whether they're romantic relationships or friendships, where we feel love from other people. But it's the detachment of it. It's knowing that if the relationship ends, again, any kind of relationship, knowing that it's going to suck and you're going to be okay because you are love. It's all within you. Again, this is one of those moments where it might sound like a departure from what you're used to from me. The thing is that like this is this is what I know to be true. There's one more thing too on that topic around finally getting to that place where you know that you are love. Not that you have it, not that you are that you have the ability to give it, but that you are love. That's what you are. One of the things that I realized when as I've come home to myself now and am in that place where I mostly can hold myself in that place that I am love, is this concept of completion. And this is another one of the life lessons that I'm going to talk about in a future one of these episodes. You guys know how Brene Brown talks about this a lot, where she says, living a wholehearted life, and other experts, whether they're research people like her or super spiritual gurus, talk about a feeling of wholeness, WHOLE-ness. And I love the word. I do. And I still wasn't 100% sure what they were talking about. What does that mean? What does that look like? Sounds good in theory, but what does that mean? Until I heard, I think it might have been Joe Dispenza. He said, he used it in the same sentence. He was talking about wholeness, and then he said, completion. And he used the words interchangeably. And I was like, oh my God, that makes more sense to me. It's the same thing, but it makes more sense to me using the word completion, feeling like the loop gets closed. Not that we are in a finished sense, not that we are done growing and evolving, but in the feeling that nothing is missing. Nothing is missing. That's what they're talking about when they're talking about wholeness and completion. When I heard that, it was like all the lights came on in the house. This was just last year. I was like, holy shit. That's what they've meant it's amazing. Semantics. Who knew? Who knew it could be that life-changing? But the concept of completion is not a finished sense, but it's the feeling of nothing is missing anymore. Because previously, I can make you a whole list of things that are missing. If this person would just do this, if I could go back in time and change this thing that happened that traumatized me to my fucking core, then I would feel complete. If X-parent would change their behavior and just apologize about this one thing, then I would feel complete. A whole list. I could go on and on with this list. So it's like when we finally come back to coming home to yourself for me and having that be your life purpose feels like getting to that place where nothing is missing. And then this points back to surrender that I talked about last week, surrendering to what is, which that one, holy smokes, that was a hard one. Did you guys see my Instagram from that week? I did an Instagram reel, and in the caption, I talked about 7 ways. I kind of summarized the podcast episode from last week and had people tell me which one was the hardest. and I was looking through the list as I was making them, and I'm like, all of these are hard for me. They're hard. And I just want to pause and take a moment to tell you that all 10 of these lessons, especially last week's on surrender, and this one too, not easy. That is an understatement. These lessons that I'm bringing you are some of the hardest that I have encountered in all of my, I can have a hard conversation with someone 100 times over than practicing surrender day in and day out of my life. It is work. It is the hardest work. But again, that's why I'm making these 10 life lessons of coming home to yourself. All right. This is the part where I talk to you about how. How do we start doing this? What do we need to do? What does it look like in action? What does the work look like in action? And I can only tell you these things because these are the things that have worked for me. And these come to you from researching a lot and from working with clients and hearing their stories and seeing what has worked with them over time, not just in 2 weeks. And also all of the training I have had, whether it's with Brene Brown senior faculty around shame resilience to all of it. And the first part is about creating awareness of where we are outsourcing love, where we are outsourcing validation, and where we are outsourcing our worthiness. And this one is sort of tricky because, of course, as humans, for our survival, it matters to us what people think and if they approve of us, if we can feel connected to them. It is part of our survival. So this is not a black or white thing. It's very nuanced, but for the sake of this conversation and this lesson, I would love for you to think about, again, there is a worksheet that goes with this. Check the show notes. we've been conditioned to believe that love and success and happiness are all things we get from the outside world. And we try to get them through people pleasing. If I make everyone happy, then I'll be worthy of love. We try to get them through overachieving and hyper productivity and overfunctioning. That says, if I accomplish enough, I'll finally feel enough. If I can check off enough boxes, I can finally exhale. We do this through validation and approval seeking. If other people approve of me, then I'll believe that I'm valuable. I'll be able to see myself through their eyes. And the problem is it's never enough. This is this running around in circles I was talking about, because the real issue is that we don't have love or worth or wholeness or completion. It's that we've been looking in the wrong places. So my question for you is where in your life are you waiting for external validation? And what would happen if you stopped? Sometimes I pose that question to clients as, what if that concept didn't even exist? It's so hard. It kind of breaks your brain a little bit. What if the concept of other people, like external validation, external love, like what if that didn't exist, or like you didn't have to look for it outside of yourself? It was just, you woke up one morning with the assumption that it already existed in your life, didn't have to chase anything. What would change for you if you could imagine that at all? That might be hard. That would be really hard for me. Step 2, and I'm not, these are not like in order. I'm just naming them just for organization's sake. So step 2 is to create some self-awareness and recognize what takes you away from yourself. What are the culprits? What are the red flags? Because we don't just lose ourselves overnight. This happens over time. It happens in micro moments. It happens in things that we tolerate. It happens in patterns and habits. And the question is, what pulls me away from my truth? And some common culprits that I see in this community, raise his hand, is perfectionism. If I do this flawlessly, I'll be enough. If other people judge me well on this, I'll be enough. We do it by numbing out. If I drink or binge watch hours and hours and hours or scroll, I won't have to feel the discomfort of my life, of my relationship, of fill in the blank. We also, we walk away from ourselves by overcommitting. If I say yes to everything, they won't reject me. This is also people pleasing. We lose ourselves by self-abandoning. You can also call that self-betrayal. If I abandon my own needs, I'll be more likable. And usually that's not a conscious thought. If I abandon myself, I'll be more likable. Put that on my to-do list today. What it comes down to is, I call it like the tiny million little yeses that we say when we don't want to, that add up and add up and add up because we want to be liked, we want to be accepted. So I'll give you an example. Maybe you feel lost in your relationship because you've spent years prioritizing other people's needs over your own. Maybe this bleeds into work a little bit too. Or you don't trust yourself because you have ignored your intuition so many times or broken your own commitments. How many times did I say never again in terms of allowing certain relationship things to happen? And then when it would happen, for me, I was so confused by the fact that I would even think about making an excuse for it. I got confused and I said, I don't know if this is my intuition or my trauma, which P.S. at the end of the day, it could be both. But it's like, these are the things that we do in order to keep ourselves, quote unquote, safe, to stay in habits that we have done our entire life. And so with any of these lessons or with any of these behaviors that I point out in these lessons, the real work is to notice. Awareness is everything. My hope, please, pleading with you, do not run to beating yourself up over it. When you notice these things, when you rip the covers off, as I like to put it, Now you can change it. Now you can sometimes stay in the grief that you might need to stay in for a little bit. Again, this is that point of no return when you know and you see what the thing is that is holding you back, that is allowing you to keep walking away from yourself. Sometimes you need to stay in the grief around that before you can make any changes. But once you see it, you can change it. The real shift always first comes from noticing gently. Noticing gently. All right. So the third thing is to work on building deep trust and self-loyalty. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. This was episode 658 on self-abandonment and self-trust. But to summarize, this starts like keeping promises to yourself. A huge one around self-trust is trusting your intuition, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient, is getting comfortable as possible with the massive discomfort of disappointing other people in order to not disappoint yourself. That one is so hard. That one is so hard. Self-trust is choosing yourself. It is betting on yourself, even when it's incredibly uncomfortable. So the fourth part is learning to sit in your own energy, really. Learning to sit with yourself without distraction. And this could look like meditation, but not necessarily. I have found, what's funny is I didn't think that this was a big problem for me until I don't even remember like kind of where I decided to start thinking about it with a little bit more intention, was like, oh, yeah, I think I assumed because I don't drink anymore, like I don't numb myself anymore. So I'm good. I can totally be with myself and my own feelings. Turns out, still have a really hard time doing that. I will find something to do or something to watch or something to do with my hands. But we are rarely alone with ourselves anymore unless you have a very intentional practice of doing so. We like to fill every moment with distraction, with our phones and TV and endless productivity and overfunctioning. And the question becomes like, what if you just sat with yourself with no numbing, no input from the outside world? Even sometimes going on walks. If you go on mental health walks, I think it's amazing to listen to music. I think it's amazing to listen to podcasts. If you're going to put anything in between your ears, have it be something that's good for you, right? That makes you feel good. And at the same time, have you tried walking without anything in your ears? It's the just being. And so this is one of those things where it becomes a practice of just being with yourself and being able to listen to yourself. That's the point. The point isn't that if you go on these walks and you don't have your headphones in, you are going to be suddenly bestowed with the meaning of your life. And that's not what I'm saying will happen. This is a practice of learning how to be in silence. This is a huge factor around self-trust, is learning how to be okay with your own wisdom that will come through if you allow it. And part of that allowing is creating times for silence without outside input. So even if it's a 5-minute check-in, even if it's just a 1-minute check-in, can we start there? Like a few times a week, take 1 minute to sit in silence and ask, what do I really need right now? Or to take yourself on a solo date, like a whole ass date, go somewhere alone, even if it's a mental health walk, hot girl walk, without distractions and be fully present. And this also comes down to getting comfortable with boredom. I was thinking about this, and sometimes I think about the differences between my childhood and my children's childhood. I'm a member of Gen X. They are Gen Z, on the younger end of Gen Z. The thing is, if you're my age, do you remember how often we were bored? Like if we had to wait for our parents to pick us up after school and like everybody's gone, which I don't think that really happens anymore. But do you remember those times where we had to just sit in silence? We don't do that anymore as adults. And so instead of reaching for our phones, like what if we just sat in the discomfort of everything being silent? It's hard, I know. It's not my favorite thing either, but I do know that practice can really lead you towards whatever it is that you need to do, you personally, because it's going to look different from me and the next person, what you need to do to come home to yourself, to feel like that is your life purpose, to feel like you can see and hear and feel your North Star, which direction is next. Okay, we need to take one more ad break. When we get back, I'm going to talk about reclaiming parts of you that may have gotten buried over the years. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, if we are talking about life purpose and that life purpose is coming home to yourself, one of the important aspects of that is reclaiming the parts of you that have most likely been buried over the years. Because I think that we come into this world already feeling complete, already feeling whole. And it's through the human experience that things get buried. Because we go through life and we shed parts of ourselves to fit in. We shed parts of ourselves. We cut off parts of ourselves to be accepted or to survive. I think it was a podcast episode I listened to ages ago. And Terry Real talks about how it may not have been him that said it. He may have been quoting another expert. So please forgive me if I'm not saying this, but right. But he was talking about, or someone was talking about how girls around age 10, 11, maybe 12 come to that point where we sort of half ourselves, HALF, and we create this kind of persona, character, part of ourselves where we are kind and nice at the expense of our own needs, at the expense of who we truly are as people. And it sort of strips a part of our humanity away and continues to do so over the years. And I resonated with that so much, not only as someone who used to be a girl that age, but also as someone with a daughter. And I think also that, at least for me, that was the place where the four holy emotions started and they took root: shame, grief, terror, and rage. When that happens to us. And it may not happen to all of us. And it certainly may not happen at that age, but I do think that for us, it happens somewhere along the line. And I say that and I emphasize that because we do it to be accepted. We do it to survive. We do it to fit in. So anytime I am working with a woman who I even smell the hint of her beating herself up for doing that to herself, I stop her and invite her to give herself lots of compassion and grace. And the way I put it, I said, you played by the rules. You did it. You played by the rules in order to survive. And now here we are. So reclaiming the parts of you that got buried. Maybe you stopped being creative when you were younger because someone said art wasn't a real career and you took on the expression starving artist. Maybe you silenced your voice because people told you that you were too much. Maybe you suppressed your emotions and shoved them down because someone or someone's told you were too emotional. Any of those. I think those are the common ones. Our creativity gets snuffed out for some reason or another. Our emotions get shoved down for some reason or another, and our voice gets silenced for some reason or another. As an exercise, again, you can look at the worksheets, or you can just ask yourself, what did I love to do as a kid that I abandoned? I think like as toddlers and children, like for some of us, that's like the last real time we felt truly alive. Like we felt truly like ourselves. So what was it that you did as a kid that you loved, that you abandoned? Where have you dimmed yourself to make others comfortable? Or maybe even it's something that you kind of know in the back of your head, something that you've been longing to reclaim. Now, these are journaling prompts. For any of you who are in my journaling class, write your way through it. If you're listening to this, these are good journaling prompts for you and anyone else as well. But as sort of a reintegration practice, I invite you to start small with these things that you think of, whether it's writing, we're talking about creativity, whether it's writing or dancing or just some kind of self-expression or setting boundaries, taking up space. Maybe it's with your style, with what you're wearing. I think embracing our personal style can be an act of fucking rebellion. It certainly has for me. And it really is about, no matter what it is that you are setting out to reclaim, it's about giving yourself permission to be whole again, giving yourself permission to start that feeling of completion, giving yourself permission to feel alive. And so the last part, number 6, if you will, is around choosing wholeness over external validation. Again, I'm going to kind of summarize and circle back to what I was saying in the beginning, is that the end game of coming home to yourself, the thing we're after, I wish I had better words to say that, but the thing we're after is not perfection. It's certainly not getting there in a linear way. The end game of coming home to yourself is wholeness. And so wholeness is realizing that you're already enough, even when life is messy, realizing that you're going to be okay on the other side of something extraordinarily difficult, that you are fireproof as you are about to walk through a fire or you're in the middle of a fire. It's realizing that love isn't something you chase. It's something you embody. That was a big one for me. It's like, wait a minute. You mean I don't have to do this song and dance and obsess over my body and appearance? And, I had a long list of things that I thought I had to do, that I thought I had to chase, that I thought I had to check off for love. But it's something that I embody, and it can feel the same as what I thought I was after. Yeah, it is. That's coming home to yourself. That's wholeness. That's completion. It's feeling at peace with yourself, no matter what anyone else says or does. And again, I am going to reiterate over and over again, this is not a perfect process. This is like, I'm new. I am the new girl here. It's got holes in it for me. Speaking of wholeness, and holy emotions, there are holes in my practice of coming home to myself. And my hope is that the more years I step over in this direction, the less holes there will be, because that's what all of my personal growth has looked like. It starts out holy, lots of holes in it, a little messy, and then it gets easier and easier as time goes on. And I spend more, I know that I will eventually spend more of my time feeling that experience of completion, feeling that feeling of wholeness, versus like the bouncing back and forth, like, oh, I'm here some days, but not other days. And so really, to summarize, and the sort of final reflection, I'm going to pose these in a series of 3 questions for you, is what if you stopped waiting to be chosen and just choose yourself? What would that look like for you? How would you show up differently in your life? These are sub-questions of that one question, because I can't just ask one question the way it is. I have to ask sub-questions. So what if you stopped waiting to be chosen and just choose yourself? What if you stopped trying to prove your worth and just believed in it? And just believed that it already existed, believed that you are the magic that can make that happen. And when I say what if, I mean, what would change in your life? How would you feel differently? How would you show up differently? What behaviors would you start to employ? What behaviors would you let go of? And finally, what if your life purpose wasn't to become someone else, but to finally become yourself, but to lean in so far that you land on it, to bet on yourself so much over and over again that you are always the person that catches yourself. Wild, right? Okay, that's all I have for you. Also, just a reminder, I'm doing a book giveaway again this week. And thank you to so many of you who have shown up and commented on my Wednesday posts that are specifically about these episodes. And I am doing a random book giveaway starting every Wednesday, and it goes through the following Monday. And you get to pick which book of mine you want, and I will personalize it and sign it and mail it off to you. So thank you so much for being here. And if you're interested in going deep with this particular work or any of the life lessons, or really anything that would be your primary focus, head on over to AndreaOwen.com. If you just want to apply, if you just want the application, AndreaOwen.com/apply. That's where my coaching application is, if you want to just make it easy on yourself. So again, come in and enter to win one of my books over on Instagram. I'm Hey Andrea Owen over there, and AndreaOwen.com for everything else that you need, including my coaching programs. Thank you so much for being here. Your time is so valuable, and that is not lost on me ever. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to the show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.